Welcome everyone to another CPU live stream. As the recurring subscribers here know that we are waiting very much for the AMD Ryzen 9 3950X. Finally, first it was delayed in September to November, but finally we have a date. We were already looking here every other day to finally order one. Finally there is a date, however unfortunately it is still, as you probably be able to see here, still nearly 2 weeks, so November 25th it is, unfortunately. So yeah, 2 more weeks of waiting. Anyway, let's hope we better get it then, not that it's still not stocked because everything sold to the data centers in more expensive server silicon. What is it? Of course, the fastest 16-core 32-thread server desktop processor. Nothing really much new here. Also, I think somewhere they mentioned water or liquid cooling. Maybe here it's offers incredible performance, best experience with liquid cooling. So actually this is not really what we wanted to do, but yeah, whatever. I was hoping to cool the 105 watt pseudo something average TDP with air, but whatever. Anyway, one little surprise here is they have a $50 SKU here for if you really want something cheap. Actually arriving even earlier. I wonder slightly, do they have so much or so leftover silicon to have here some AMD Athlon 3000G with graphic here. Obviously this SKUs have no graphic, but so 35 watts with graphic, only dual core quad thread, $50 available earlier. However, this is only Zen 1 Plus or so based, as far as I've seen somewhere. But anyway, you get the idea. We also have some other news. A short look, AMD Ryzen 4000, some more details here leaked or announced or something the other day. That will be so Zen 3 coming next year, according to latest statements there. Dr. Lisa Su confirmed this Saturday, apparently, allegedly, according to this, that they will be introducing the next generation Ryzen 4000 series processors by early 2020, which, as we now learned anyway, introducing versus actual shipping silicon, there will be some months. Also keep in mind what even we were a little bit confused here getting new into low-level hardware. The mobile SKUs are half a generation behind. So this means next year's mobile 4000 will be Zen 2, and confusing naming scheme we called this out previously already. This will be, actually, I think they somewhere mentioned like 8% IPC uplift or something of that sort. Otherwise relatively similar. I think that they not even really sure if they improved here something in terms of AVX. But here's a list which you probably may or may not be able to see. So that will be Zen 3, 7 nanometer plus, details to be announced, maybe if we are lucky slightly higher than or whatsoever. PCI Gen 4, because certainly no newer PCI Gen anyway, and yeah, most of the stuff to be announced, but I would not expect there too high increases. Don't really think the 7 nanometer plus will be too much smaller. Also, I think they mentioned something of 200 megahertz higher clocks speeds versus the predecessor. But otherwise, I think this will be not too different, but certainly 8, I think, IPC delivers approximately, allegedly, according to their marketing stuff, 8% and 200 megahertz clocks next year, but certainly next weeks. Finally, hopefully getting the 3950X. Intel is also doing some stuff, and here, according to the semi-accurate site, that likes to be shouted out very much, as I've read in some previous articles. So that is semi-accurate. Probably wanna go share and subscribe there on that news sites if you're into this sort of things. And what is newsworthy, you might not have got the note that this Tremont Atom core. So this is an Atom core, right? And you would think, yeah, that's not very newsworthy. And he has this Atom slow piece of SKU stuff. But there's apparently one big change coming that is, or actually 3 big changes that you might have missed otherwise if you not share, like, and subscribe to this channel here. So the first thing is that apparently Intel is planning to go for some big little setup, similar to the ARM, where on ARM we have big little, meaning we have big cores and little cores like high performance, and paired with high energy efficient cores, for example, for fetching emails in the background and all this notification stuff and such, without burning away all your battery life and electrons there. And apparently Intel is doing or planning, allegedly to those rumors here or whatever, not sure if they have announced this already. So this Atom core will be part of high-end SKUs, what Intel or no x86 ever has done before. That might be something you want to watch out for, maybe also something that AMD probably wants to look into, maybe getting into, not sure, maybe. So this has some consequences. The biggest change here is one thing is that is not a consequence, but one huge change is that this Intel Atom is apparently, according to these rumors here, not sure if that's confirmed or whatever, but apparently, allegedly, this is natively decoding x86 instructions. Okay, all CPUs were decoding that, but the big change here, according to this news, is that the last 2 decades of Intel CPUs and AMD CPUs, they were decoding this complex x86 instructions into micro-ops, which probably I actually could have opened. And certainly the high-end SKUs are still doing this, Intel micro-ops. And to visualize this, maybe there is some visualization usually here next on micro-op fusion here of this sort. So because x86 is super complex, also super old article from a decade ago, but doesn't matter. So what Intel CPUs have been doing for a very long time is certainly internally not using x86 instructions, because super complex, it's already in the name, right? Complex instruction set architecture. And actually it is not complex, it's super complex in my opinion anyway. So what the CPUs have done for decades, since the Pentium or something, is internally decoding this to internal micro-ops, because for high performance and risk like reduced instruction set computing. And according to this speculation here, native, it was mentioned here somewhere, so apparently this Tremont or whatever, probably should Google some native pronunciation of this. Anyway, doesn't use micro-ops anymore, executing x86 instructions natively. And I really wonder, so this certainly makes the internal core entirely different of anything that Intel or AMD has done for 2 decades. And this will be really interesting to see. So of course not the whole core, only the Atom low performance core. The consequence of this big Endian design, yeah, exactly, Detard, welcome everyone in the audience. So the two consequences of this are that since any SMP multi-processing setup of even 486 or Pentiums, you always had to use identical processors, and this will be a very rare x86 setup of having 2 entirely different cores, right? So this also means there need to be changes to operating systems like Windows and Linux and BSD and Haiku and stuff, because now this Atom core does not feature any of those advanced AVX stuff. And that means if you just take this existing operating system and run it on this big little setup, your applications using fancy AVX will randomly segmentation fault or due to illegal instruction for any AVX legacy 1, 2 or 512 formats. So there need to be, to run this at all stable and efficiently, you need to have operating system changes for the scheduler to be aware. Certainly the scheduler would, if all the high performance cores are sleeping for energy efficient reasons and some background task like checking for mail or something is using accidentally or whatever AVX, then the scheduler, without modifications, the process would receive a random, whenever it's running on a little core, illegal instruction, so changes are coming to all the operating systems who want to support this fancy, never seen before on x86, and not even sure if any ARM CPUs have this, but ARM is less complex. So on ARM, maybe all the big little cores have the same instruction set support or something of that sort. Very theoretically, it could of course be done in hardware. I'm not sure if Intel has already declassified here anything of this sort. Very theoretically, you could of course in hardware wake up another core and continue execution there, but I guess this would make the overly complex x86 even more overly complex, so most likely I would expect this to be handled in software. What was the other consequence of that? One big consequence of this sort, what was the other I wanted to mention? Integer execution, yeah, anyway. Anyway, that is the big change here. And so this will be certainly interesting to come. Also, that is of course a big challenge for Linux and open source to actually support this efficiently, because to have the highest energy efficiency, you would have some background processes of desktop environments like your mail client specifically crafted to run on little cores. Also maybe the Linux kernel, maybe you could get away mostly just running all the background noise always on the little cores, and maybe actually this is always the operating system design, whether to have specific support for such kind of stuff, like to tell the operating system. Well, actually you could even do this with Unix native APIs, like to bind this to a specific core, like the application could theoretically discover all the CPU feature support and feature sets and CPU frequency ranges and pin background processes just to the little cores. However, otherwise, so maybe we don't even need new APIs, but certainly it would probably be helpful for the developers to have a nice API for querying a notification like this. But in any case, maybe it is already efficient enough. So certainly when we always talk about the Linux scheduler and all the desktop snappiness performance, or even CPU frequency scaling stuff for energy safety, energy saving and high performance, these are all the design choices. Maybe actually it would be a good design choice, a very simple one, to always run the background noise task on the little cores and only wake up the big cores if there are either sufficient load or AVX instructions, certainly to run them at that. Anyway, you see x86 not only getting more complex with all the single instruction multiple data, AVX, AVX2, AVX 512, which barely, unless you use multimedia applications, used nowadays, or run a source distribution like T2 or Gen2 and compile everything with AVX. But even then, this kind of single instruction multiple data usually only used with massive data processing loops. So yeah, all this complexity. Also, they mentioned this here specifically in this article, that of course they do not implement AVX, any kind of AVX in this Atom core, because this of course takes up too much die area and requires too much power. Especially we have seen this in high performance cores right now. If you have AVX tasks, then the CPUs, Core i7, Core i9 stuff, are not turbo boosting as much anymore with AVX load. And certainly all this die area, this is also a little bit my recurring critique here of this kind of complexity, this kind of instruction sets barely used, not even really sure if that is the best way of advancing computing. Maybe it would be much more high performance and energy efficient if we would have more dedicated GPU-like function block for this, and not have this in this regular super oversized, super complex Intel x86 cores for barely used instructions, especially with my microkernel and just-in-time compilation stuff. If you have classic legacy precompiled software, again, you specifically need to add support for this kind of huge die areas, barely used, and if you used, your CPU is not turbo boosting as much anymore. So yeah, somehow maybe not the very best design choice. Let's see comments in the audience. That is the summary here of all those updates. Otherwise, at the Intel side, also a little bit IPC uplift here and there, and caches and the usual, just increase the caches and buffers. Stupid, but otherwise, yeah, this big little, certainly one of the biggest innovations there in x86 land for a very long time. Someone is loving our rents here. You mean Apple rents, or today didn't really rent too much, except AMD, where is my 3950X I finally needed, because somewhere here compiling MIP stuff, so certainly very much needed. Let's see, different NUMA domains. I would guess that they arrange those into different NUMA domains. Yeah, I wonder what kind of CPU ID features there. Maybe they need, maybe they don't even need to add much. Certainly I would personally usually prefer not to over specify the stuff. The operating system could, of course, the operating system already needs to discover all the CPUs. So while doing it, it could just add support for CPU IDing all the different cores and then store this away in kernel structures for the scheduler to use. So maybe not too much. It's already decoded in or encoded in all the socket and thread siblings and stuff to probe there. So maybe not even new bits needed there, but yeah, would present a workable abstraction for the scheduler. Yeah, I'm really wondering. There are other changes coming to the scheduler, even the Linux scheduler, even still after a decade later in the Linux kernel, still being work done for energy efficient use in the scheduler. You would think all the big distributions and Intel and all the friends and families there have already optimized the heck out of it. But I'm really surprised how many projects are still working on the Linux scheduler, and sometimes they achieve new energy efficient and performance. Because the thing is, even for high performance, you need an efficient scheduler, especially with all the turbo boosting, right? So even in single or mixed multi-threaded and single workloads, even there it's not that straightforward with all the CPU turbo boosting frequencies to get the highest performance out of this. So like, for example, if you have some background noise, it might be worthwhile to just run this on one core and get higher turbo boosting than having a little bit background noise on additional cores that might actually decrease your turbo boosting. So a lot of fiddling, fine-tuning, and yeah, the problem is, of course, super complex instruction set architecture, so even the turbo boosting and scheduling is not trivial. Kind of dissimilar CPU in a NUMA system in their own domains. Interesting. Are there a system not really heard of this so far? I would think that I guess in the expensive supercomputers with thousands of CPUs, they probably just order the same, but not really sure if I've ever seen a mixed system like this, but maybe someone has done it so far. Excited some of the laptops come out in the next 2 years. I think the new performance efficiency will bring resurgence laptop population and design will come seeker more afford. Are you excited for some? So I was a little bit excited for the, actually I made the other video, the AMD Ryzen, maybe the best thin and light AMD Ryzen from Microsoft Surface there. I'm a little bit disappointed that I overlooked that it only has like 2 USB ports or so, which are so super nice 3x2 display there on the Microsoft Surface thing. Not really sure if I ever want, after the N-Trick touch failure here, if I ever want to support Microsoft. Well, support, right? I'm supporting the richest companies on earth. But I'm really disappointed by the N-Trick touch disease stuff, and that Microsoft has not an extended warranty. So I still sit here with this stupid touch disease stuff. And on the other hand, it is more serviceable now. It is has a gorgeous 3x2 display, thin and light AMD Ryzen, but yeah, maybe 2 USB ports, not really sure. Otherwise, that was, I mentioned this before, and probably I should finally make a final update of the of the Lenovo ThinkPads that I'm using for quite some months now. There are some things to be better. For example, the ThinkPad would be slightly better with 1mm thicker for some better port stuff and such. But unfortunately, all the PC vendors take most inspiration from copying Intel MacBooks. So that is really unfortunate. In my opinion, many PC laptops could be much better with just 1mm thicker regular 1 USB port, more like the Surface, like 2 more USB ports on the other side or something. For myself, for pro users, would improve usability. The thin and light ThinkPads with a proper Ethernet jack for the real administrative coding pros here of really getting stuff done. So in this terms of innovation, not really sure with the thin and light innovation. And otherwise, yeah. Detach says SGI used to do this with their Intel machines. Interesting, I didn't know this. So what did they do? Did they just, like, while they built this, they used higher frequency for the last nodes or something? So come to the audience. Linux is getting better for laptops. Yeah, for me Linux is pretty amazing, except on MacBooks, which I in general don't recommend for many years to buy anymore. While on ThinkPads, Linux is amazing. On the MacBooks, even with my 6-year-old, there you see, don't buy Apple MacBooks. The hardware is not amazing, just watch Louis Rossman's channel. And otherwise, even driver-wise, not amazing. And even 6 years in, you would think everything is on the Linux side. After 6 years with my vintage Retina MacBook Pro, amazing, but it isn't. Graphic switching doesn't work in any useful form. Other things are not amazing. Wireless, it's some binary only Broadcom wireless, not amazing stuff. And on Linux, this Retina MacBook Pro gets significantly hotter, even though I already switch off the NVIDIA, only use Intel with the hex here on my channel with some EFI magic to achieve that. I tried undervolting it a little bit, and on at least this Retina MacBook Pro, Linux runs significantly hotter. Even though I did every magic I could imagine, it's still not running amazingly. So yeah, but not really sure if that is an intentional Apple thing, that Apple is either undervolting or doing other tricks, or is doing firmware stuff intentionally to make Windows run less amazingly than macOS. With Apple nowadays, you wonder if they intentionally cripple the firmware a little bit just to make Windows. Obviously not Linux. Very few people at Apple certainly think about Linux, but just for the Windows use case, similar to what I've documented with the EFI magic for the iGPU, because otherwise on Boot Camp, Apple is just disabling the Intel GPU because don't care about hybrid graphics, and certainly totally ruining the Windows stuff. You can unlock this. I documented this EFI magic stuff here, but even then it's not amazing, so don't buy this Apple stuff. Anyway, soldered SSD, a glued-in battery, and few ports, and annoying RMT2 stuff. So yeah. Questions whether I've looked into the Pinebook Pro, not really much, but in general looked interesting. I only thought a little bit maybe more DIY friendly than Purism stuff. Let's say Detard writes they linked modules together with NumaLink. They could have different frequencies and such, upgrade the system. Okay, so they also used NumaLink, so which also our previous video Origin 200, which by the way just double checked here before this live stream, not making this up on this. This is still the oops from the Origin. I just wanted to double check after this super long live stream what I've done there. But I have to conclude that just loading the init.rd, actually I still have that here if you're interested in a final update to this. Well, it's not the final for one more update, it's still not the final update. So I'm checksumming here the kernel on the MIPS64. So this checks out okay. As you see here, final update, so A3, so final checksum here. So the checksum is, it's not, I was suspecting memory clobbering this, but it isn't. It took me also 3 hours of the other live stream to implement this with some stupid trial and error, because maybe too overworked. Anyway, of course, compiled on a Ryzen MIP 64 kernel, cross-compiled on amazing hostnames here to Rise. And yeah, final update via what it looks according to my checksum here. If my checksumming code, maybe you want to double check my checksumming code, it's pasted below the other video. Certainly hope there's nothing wrong with that. But it looks we are not memory clobbering the kernel. Yet I double checked before this video what the other long live stream really something memory allocation wise. I'm not really sure why the kernel oops, because the kernel image is not memory clobbered there on MIP 64 Linux on the origin on this SGI goodness. Yet it's dying here with an oops in page alloc. I have no idea why. The last thing, so the only change is what is really bizarre. So there must be some memory allocation change, because the only difference is loading the initRD, not even passing it to the kernel. So I commented this out, and yet the kernel is oopsing there. So that is really total pain in the ass to debug. One of the most bizarre bugs I ever hunted. If you were wanting how we waste our time and money here, but yeah. Need to continue this. So my speculation is either this is in the ARX bootloader. There you see boot code, right? And esoteric, the more simple, the better. The only thing I can imagine, and for this I would need to dive there even more into debugging this, is that just loading the initRD from the file system is leaving either corrupting ARX memory or ARX the memory allocation changes, and I don't know if either the Linux kernel gets another memory map, or I don't know, that's super bizarre. Anyway, so Blade Stealth, yeah, Blade Stealth I've not heard, I never had a Blade Stealth, but I heard on other YouTubers like Louis Rossmann maybe, or others, that they also had some overheating stuff and even some MOSFETs or something overheating on dying maybe of MOSFETs or something, power delivery gets too hot. So if I already see this at Louis Rossmann, then I already shy away from that. Pine 64 is all about DIY culture from what I've seen here. This is what I like. I would personally more get into DIY culture stuff than, as you see, the companies are not your friend. Like not Apple soldered down SSD, soldered down memory for the most part. Stupid security processor, not old-fashioned ports. So if you have some, this is, you know, for professionals like me and you, if you have here some old-fashioned serial dongle stuff, well, old-fashioned, if you have some serial dongle for your Raspberry Pi, for any other router, Octane, whatever stuff, any of this sort, or any other alarm system programming, telephone system program, I don't know, then you can't even plug in your USB-A connector into like all the FPGA, like everything, right? FPGA programming, it's a pain in the ass, in my opinion. I would not buy. I think even the Surface tablet has, not tablet, the AMD Ryzen Surface laptop has at least one Type A and one Type C as far as I remember, but 2 is a little bit, yeah, but whatever. Anyway, yes, 3950X shipping date announced. That was the beginning of this video, at least something, but still 2 weeks. So 2 weeks, then we will see if we totally overheat our mini ITX stuff. I wanted to say I would more support DIY culture, because as you see, if something goes wrong here in the Microsoft Surface, touch disease, made already 2 or 3 videos, touch disease. So what does it mean? That means like iPads and iPhones, it's getting dead zones and phantom touches. Made a couple of videos, totally annoying. And Microsoft, unlike Apple, Microsoft does not have an extended warranty program for that, which in my opinion is not okay. But yeah, this is why anyway, not really the most motivated with this. Yeah, Detard writes the Razer products are pretty damn overpriced. Yeah, that's also my conclusion of this, plus other people like Louis Rossmann probably and others mentioned overheating VRMs, MOSFETs or something. So Also, yeah, comments out in stupid security processor. Yeah, that's exactly. Also, Intel certainly needs to do this because Apple is certainly moving to ARM laptops. I would be surprised if Apple does not yet have ARM MacBooks. For sure they have with their own A12 or whatever generation they are on. So it's certainly a safe bet that any company like as large and own processors as Apple, they must have already prototypes. It's impossible, in my opinion. I would bet even €1,000 or whatever, theoretically even more. But they must have already ARM prototypes, and I'm pretty sure as soon as they think it's commercially viable, they will bring them to market. Maybe as soon as next year, I don't know, maybe. So, but also I said this before, ARM MacBooks will not be as successful because, in my opinion, a lot of people actually purchase a MacBook just for the hardware and style and still run Windows, and that is exactly what you will not be able to do comfortably unless you could run ARM Windows, and ARM Windows for ARM certainly not as amazing with application compatibility. And certainly I wonder if actually Apple will allow this. Of course, it is theoretically possible to run ARM Windows on an ARM MacBook, but Apple being Apple, I would not be surprised if they would totally lock it down with the same iBoot, iPhone and iPad security. So I would not count on that. And then, of course, ARM Windows is already not the most amazing. And then ARM Windows on an ARM MacBook is like, yeah, if it is even possible without hacking it. And then the problem is, of course, security. If the boot process is somewhat secure, then it might, and it's not like open that you can unlock it for whatever reasons, then it might take 10 years or something if someone like the iBoot and P3 and stuff hacks, finds a security flaw in there. That is, yeah, boot security, in my opinion, for the most part. But I called this out before. In my opinion, all devices should be user unlockable, from iPhones to iPads to ARM, potential ARM MacBooks and anything else. Also from Microsoft, there were the Surface RT stuff with ARM that were highly unsuccessful because not much Windows ARM software. So yeah, this will change, huge question marks, and that is certainly why Intel needs to do this, because Intel certainly eventually in the future loses Apple as a customer. It's inevitable, and because Apple, certainly, as you see, it's obvious, right? Means it's probably don't even need to discuss this, that Apple has their own powerful ARM CPU. So as soon as they have their macOS ported and ready and the stuff performant enough, they will for sure stop buying Intel CPUs. Certainly not the largest, maybe even the largest customer for Intel, but I don't know how much percent that is of Apple's of Intel's revenue, 8% or 5%. Obviously hurts Intel maybe a little bit, but they certainly need to have something ready in terms of little ARM. That is certainly why they are doing this, similar to this connected standby on Windows to fetch emails in the background. And yeah, that is that development. One last look here on the Commons Optimus something. Graphic switching, as always, is bad on Linux regardless of hardware. Yes, but on PCs it's better. On the new PCs, we had this also previous channel here. By the way, neighbor office is hammering their thumbnails if you're wondering what, in case you hear this hammering. So this graphic switching on the Dell XPS that we had here, hybrid graphics, was just using no additional hardware, right? So this is why it is different to use on Linux. So any GPU application could use it, but there's nothing special. And the problem with the Intel MacBooks is they have a graphic mux, which I mentioned in this video, meaning that both are connected to the display, and so the setup is different, and the switching in this mux is also for me not working. Needs a special Apple Gmux driver there in VGA switcheroo, and this is why it is yes, there also exist PCs that did this. It is a little bit more old-fashioned technology, but this is why, especially as it's an Apple-only proprietary Gmux, then yeah, obviously it's a little bit glitchy. So yeah. New, so get what you pay with the new Stealth, got a brighter screen, amazing design, aesthetic. So yeah, the problem is I also like the black and beautiful design aesthetic of a Razer Blade Stealth stuff there. I agree with that, but I would also get this with a Microsoft Surface. Actually, to be honest, I would probably more likely purchase a Microsoft Surface because I heard so many overheating and failing hardware defects on the Razer stuff that I will probably trust Microsoft more, Microsoft and AMD, to manufacture something not as overheating and power delivery failing there as those MOSFETs or VRMs. And also probably for me personally, the Microsoft Surface might actually be the better device with this gorgeous 3x2 screen that is actually, to be honest, I'm a little bit tempted, especially with the YouTube channel. Without the YouTube channel, I would probably maybe not buy it, but with the added bonus of having here some Linux on Microsoft Surface review, leave me in the comments below if you want to see me doing that, because the screen is just, I have to admit, it's a gorgeous screen, right? And for all the programming stuff, 3x2, totally amazing. I wish, by the way, I wish Lenovo would do this. This is also one of the things on the Lenovo ThinkPads. I wish they had better screens, especially they have such a huge bezel there that they could easily fit a 16 by 16 by 9 versus 16 by 10 screen or so. So huge display possibilities, especially we made a previous video that Lenovo is intentionally leaving out some higher end display options, especially in many countries. For the AMD Ryzen ThinkPad, that is certainly also not cool. So yeah. So battery life, not necessarily what you have. Battery life will be really insane on ARM MacBooks. Detailed says not necessarily, depends on how much energy you consume with. Yeah, so actually the battery stuff is a little bit of a myth, because in modern, well, it always depends what you're doing, but when you're just typing along on the web and doing the usual office stuff, then the CPU is sleeping most of the time and the display is consuming most of the energy. So the energy efficiency probably will only be better on ARM laptops if you actually use them to watch a YouTube video here on this channel or something of that sort. Because otherwise, idle-wise, with an idle desktop of doing office stuff, the CPU is sleeping most of the time. But yeah, for that, by the way, we still need on Linux, certainly the biggest showstopper on Linux, what will certainly vastly increase your energy efficiency and battery life, is actually if we would have hardware isolated video on browsers, which you only get Firefox, not even a patch available the last week I checked. And for Chrome, you need to compile Chrome yourself, because the official binary only release of Chrome the last time I checked did also not have VA API hardware isolation, which is really set for desktop Linux in 2019. Faster, slower matters. What else do we have? This week I'm going to see if it can disable secure boot. Ah, cool. Jamerican347 in the comments, can you please keep us updated? This is also what I theoretically would want to try. And yeah, I'm just a little bit, because with $3 a day can't really justify purchasing a Surface Pro, except if I would be an ass and order it online and send it back, which I usually don't support and don't do. But yeah, otherwise, Jamerican347, please keep me updated on that. That would be amazing. Probably they are most likely using using EFI, right? So most likely, if you could disable secure boot, but on the Windows RT Surfaces from many years ago, I think you could not do this. There was a hack to disable this. I would not be surprised, but please keep us updated what you find there. I would not be surprised if Microsoft, being an ass as usual, like the big corporation, showing us a finger, especially for Linux, and not allowing this, which I called out in this video, right? I probably mentioned this in this video, and it would actually allow Microsoft to sell more hardware, but Microsoft being Microsoft and Apple being Apple and Google being Google, would not be surprised if you couldn't do that. Yeah, ThinkPad Carbon has the best aesthetics, I agree. I've not seen it in person, but but this is a sad thing, right? That feature-wise, the X1 Carbon is not the best for me, but then there you see the purchase decision that even I get tempted, as rational as I try to be, like, yeah, that really looks gorgeous. I wish that they had a SKU, like custom to order option, build to order option on more of those with the carbon finish on a regular 495 or whatever, something. But yeah, on the other hand, you could buy something of that sort from D brand and glue it over there probably if you wanted or so. So what else do we have? Looking forward to the, but then we are probably mostly through here. Brought a MacBook. I think you brought MacBook deep down knowing it was going to be tough to work. Who do you talk about, me or someone? If you talk about me, then I brought a MacBook because we do Mac software and I don't want to get sued by Apple for running Hackintosh for commercial use. But if you were wondering about me, so anyway, laptop 3, all I can afford is Honor. So Harry is jealous of your laptop 3. Which laptop 3? All I can afford to save for the Honor Magic Book Pro. Xiaomi Mi notebook. Diethard has a Xiaomi Mi notebook Pro and it's amazing. That is cool stuff. Matte or glossy? Glossy. ThinkPad Carbon, yeah, geek chick. Yeah, so that, but this is also the ThinkPad Carbon, which I reviewed the last year's model. The Carbon X1 was pretty amazing. Even battery life on Linux, it was super long, way over 10 hours, much longer than the T490, by the way, for whatever reason, not sure why. I just wish it had more ports, and as the biggest showstopper, I really wish the X1 Carbon would have a regular Ethernet port. That is so annoying to have this stupid dongle, in my opinion. So yeah, pretty good, but it would have preferred the matte panel. Yeah, exactly. Also here, Matt, I had the Microsoft Surface RT and it didn't allow you to disable, yeah, Jamerican. However, in the meantime, there was once a hack, right? Not only did Microsoft discontinue whatever there also was a hack, right? If you want to boot Linux, I think you could boot Linux. Not sure how the driver support is, but there was once a golden EFI key, or also disable administration, whatever. There was something. So yeah, exactly. So Windows RT, Windows 8 hack allowed you to install unsigned WinARM binaries. And I hope to see you soon for all this upcoming stuff.